Hello everyone, a big welcome to my channel. I am the introverted astrologer and today I'm back with another video on the British royal family. I'd just like to say a big hello to any new subscribers. Thank you so much to those of you who gave positive and sensitive feedback on my last video. I can't tell you how much that meant. And for those of you who requested a closer look at the chart of Princess Catherine, this is what we'll be doing today. Princess Catherine has a very strong aspect in her natal chart that is being brought to life again. Both Chiron and Saturn will be playing a massive part in her life this year. So let's go to the computer and see how 2024 is going to unfold for this lovely lady. So we'll start by recapping on what I had found in my last video on the royal family. This video was made a few days before Princess Catherine's announcement that she was undergoing cancer treatment. And in this video, we had identified something very important in what we call the progressions. When astrologers use progressions, very broadly speaking, they are treating one calendar day as being equivalent to every 1 year that a person has lived. This would be equivalent to looking at the 20th of February 1982. The sun would move roughly 1 degree for every year of life. The progressed moon would move a little quicker than that. And we can fine-tune these progressed positions to make accurate predictions about the events that unfold in somebody's life. When Princess Catherine was born, Mars, moving round in the heavens, appeared to be moving forward from our earthly perspective. But once Catherine reached the age of 42, Mars had slowed down considerably. It had become stationary and was about to turn retrograde. This happened in the very month that Princess Catherine had her abdominal surgery. Now, we don't often have years where our progressed planets will change direction. Some of us may never have a change of direction in our progressed planets. And the fact that Mars changed motion in this way at the time of major surgery for Princess Catherine is testimony to how magnificent astrology is as a predictive tool, as a way of understanding how life works. If you look at her natal chart, you can see that her sun and her moon oppose each other, and her Mars squares both of them. Mars moved forward 1 day for every year of Catherine's life, until it gets to the point where she's going to have major surgery. It suddenly stations and begins turning retrograde. Now, what can Mars represent in a person's chart? It can represent conflict, aggression, hostilities. It can be soldiers too, but it can also be surgeons. And at the time that Mars stationed direct, it was a minute away from being in an exact square to her sun, and just over half a degree away from being in an exact square with her moon. We'd already explained that her sun and her moon are in the houses where we would look for health, for disability, for hospitalisation, for seclusion. I'll also point out that the transiting North Node was in opposition to her progressed Mars and squaring her sun and moon in January. The North Node can amplify and make bigger the points or the planets which it contacts. And we can also see that it was squaring its own natal position in January too. We also discussed in my earlier video that Princess Catherine's birth time of 7 p.m. sounds a little too exact, and it comes from somebody's memory. As human memory isn't very reliable, we must bear in mind that if it was a few minutes out, that would change her ascendant. Transiting Uranus was moving through 19 degrees of Taurus in January, and there is a possibility that if Princess Catherine had been born a few minutes earlier, that it would have been squaring her ascendant at this time too. In fact, this would have been something that actually began in 2023. Now, if the birth time we've been given for Princess Catherine is correct, we can see that her progressed ascendant is just a few minutes away from forming an exact trine with her natal sun. And this would be a more promising aspect, somebody who would be hoping to recover from an illness. If Catherine had been born just a few minutes earlier, then the progressed ascendant would be moving into that trine with her sun and becoming exact in 2025. So you can see how the accuracy of the birth time is so important when it comes to the ascendant and the midheaven. And this can make predictive work a little tricky. I had also explained about Catherine's progressed moon in my previous video, but we'll go into this in greater detail now. 42 days after Princess Catherine was born, we would be looking at the date of 20th of February 1982. And on that specific day, the moon moved between around 25 degrees of Capricorn. It changed sign and reached almost 7 degrees of Aquarius by the end of the day. This means that for Princess Catherine's 42nd year of life, using our progressed method, we can break down where the moon would be for every month of 2024. And this allows us to pinpoint emotional fluctuations that the princess will be undergoing during 2024, because we can work out which aspects the moon makes to the other planets in her natal chart. Sometimes when the progressed moon makes aspects with other planets, it acts as a trigger, and this may be the month where a transit is activated too. So, for example, in February we can see Catherine's progressed moon made a stressful square aspect with her natal Pluto. This is very intense, most likely upsetting, and we know now that it would have corresponded with a time when she was aware that she had cancer and had a very difficult decision to make about cancer treatment. Will the progressed moon tell us any more about 2024? Well, yes, it will. For a start, it's moving through the sign of Capricorn, which is Princess Catherine's 6th house, the house of health. This coincides exactly with the general flavour of her life at this time, and we can see that it will carry on moving through those final degrees of Capricorn, of her house of health. But it will change in the second part of May and move into Aquarius, which is the sign on her 7th house cusp. So the emphasis will start changing from being all about health and become more about Catherine's formal relationships. This would include her marriage and her formal alliances, and we know that Aquarius is a detached and airy sign. And so communication with others will become pivotal too. I think the next 2 or 3 months will be particularly intense for Princess Catherine, because the moon will still be in that health setting of Capricorn. But as we move into late July and August, the progressed moon will begin making a sextile aspect to her natal Uranus. This is a refreshing aspect with the potential to bring some welcome, stimulation, modest and invigorating change that will be welcome. It could involve children or creativity because Uranus is in the 5th whole sign house. And as we move towards the end of the year, that progressed moon will pretty swiftly make a square aspect to her midheaven, conjunct her natal Mercury and Venus, and square her natal Jupiter. So between October of this year and January of next year, we'll have these 4 aspects play out quite swiftly. Will this relate to Princess Catherine's official duties? Will we see a marked increase in the amount of engagements that she needs to undertake in an official capacity? Because we have the midheaven involved, there is likely to be more emphasis on communication, interaction, socialising, meeting people, formal relationships, and the square to Jupiter in the midheaven could make us anticipate a time when we are stretched considerably. There are a couple of things about this progressed moon that I'd like to draw your attention to. One of these things is the fact that the progressed moon will also be making aspects with transiting planets, and these contacts can have considerable impact on our mood. Now we know that transiting Pluto is in the early degrees of Aquarius and will be turning retrograde to make one last touchdown in the sign of Capricorn. This means that during the months of June and July, it will rub up against Princess Catherine's progressed moon, which is, of course, going to be in the early degrees of Aquarius. These two bodies will slowly pass each other. Perhaps this marks a time when Princess Catherine is feeling emotionally very low. Pluto can be deep and dark. There can be feelings of trauma, but it also comes with purging, transformation, renewal. And I wonder if this rendezvous between Pluto and Princess Catherine's progressed moon marks the end of a particular phase in her health this year. Will this correlate with a part of her treatment where she feels at her lowest ebb? Her progressed moon will move out of orb of this conjunction, and by the end of July it will be almost 2 degrees away. The other thing I'd wanted to draw your attention to was that Princess Catherine's progressed moon is slowly drawing closer to entering a conjunction with her progressed sun. The precise conjunction, which is a progressed new moon, won't happen until 2027. However, she is in that part of the lunation cycle that we call the progressed balsamic moon. This is the last major phase between the sun and the moon before they exactly conjunct each other. We had previously looked at King Charles's chart. He too was in the progressed balsamic phase until just over a month ago. This progressed balsamic phase can be quite an unsettling period of our lives. To set the background for this, let me explain. These are major life cycles. Most of us will only have 2 or 3 of them. And at the time where we reach the end of each cycle, our lives often undergo changes in preparation for the new cycle. This can mean that some of the things we have will go or change, including friends, residence, occupation, states of health, and various other factors which have been part of our life's landscape. So Princess Catherine is now entering a part of the lunation cycle where some things could change. Now we want to know how Princess Catherine is going to get through 2024. So we're going to outline the transits that she'll be going through this year. But these transits are important because they are reinvigorating certain components of her natal chart. Now, the princess that I see in the media is glamorous, confident, self-assured, and she oozes regality. But we're going to take a closer look at this lady because the parts of herself that she keeps private are not necessarily what we are seeing on the surface. Now we can see that Leo ascendant so often associated with royalty, politicians, entertainers, people who need to take the stage. But behind the scenes, let's take a look at her ruling planet, her sun, and her moon. They are actually in the 6th and 12th houses, which we do associate with health and with privacy, that which is hidden. We often associate the 6th, the 8th and the 12th houses with more difficult parts of life. The challenges such as sickness, disability, crisis, death, seclusion and potentially self-undoing. I would envisage the princess as being quite a strong person because we do have a lot of planets placed in cardinal or fixed modalities. But with that Cancer moon in the 12th, we know that she can be extremely sensitive. She may even be slightly psychic. There will certainly be a kinder, softer side to her personality and a need to take refuge from the world. At times, she may need to keep her emotions very private and out of the world's gaze. And because there is a very sensitive and sympathetic side to this moon, we know that she would be sympathetic to the plight of other people. And yet if we look at the sign of Libra, which correlates with her third house, we can see that there is a lot of tension from these planets as they form a T-square with that Sun and Moon. Mars forms quite a wide square, and Mars is in the sign of Libra where it is said to be in its detriment. Mars would be the part of our nature where we feel able to go out and get what we want, where we can stand our ground, how we take initiatory action and express our will and our anger. In the sign of Libra, which is about relating to others, Mars does not express itself so directly. In fact, Mars can feel uncomfortable at expressing anger when it is in this sign. It may find aggression distasteful, and so Mars may find other ways of expressing will and anger, and these can include more unhealthy behaviours of sulking, of emotional manipulation, and these would be behaviours to be on guard against. But more closely squaring the Sun and Moon, we have Saturn. Saturn is said to be exalted in Libra, and it is quite close to Pluto, which also joins in this whole T-square. It's possible that Princess Catherine's early conditioning taught her a lot about the power dynamics in relationships. I think with all the Libra emphasis and the Sun-Moon polarity, Princess Catherine will have become very aware of opposites, of the roles that people play out in relationships. We would expect quite a lot of self-doubt with this placement, of an old head on young shoulders. There is a possibility that there may have been conditions placed on the love that was received as part of her early nurturing. Some keywords that I would use would be cautious, self-reliant, self-critical, strategic. Now Chiron is providing a release for some of this pressure. It is in quite close aspect and is trining her Sun and sextiling that Moon. Now Chiron used to be thought of as being an asteroid, but it has since been reclassified as a mini-planet and a comet at the same time. It's what we call the wounded healer, and we can see that it is squaring her ascendant. This shows us that Princess Catherine has herself felt wounded in her life, possibly by her appearance. And even though it's in a trine to her Sun, there will still have been some wounding of the solar principle. This is actually an aspect which appears with regularity in the royal family charts. King Charles has a conjunction of the Sun and Chiron, as did his late mother, the Queen Elizabeth. Sun-Chiron aspects appear in many of the royal charts, and so there is a wound to the Sun's need to express itself. It is almost as though these people cannot be themselves because they are held back by the roles that they have to play in life. And with that Chiron in the 10th house, we could see Princess Catherine as having to hold back from truly expressing her genuine solar nature because she has been born to play out a role, in this case bringing healing to a nation through that position of Chiron in her 10th public midheaven house. We do know that Princess Catherine has already done a great deal of work with cancer sufferers, but also with mental health problems and the associated fields of addictions. In fact, this very journey that she is on this year will most likely enrich that public work and strengthen her ability to empathise with cancer sufferers and to facilitate the healing of others by sharing her own painful journey. Now I'm raising the positions of Saturn and Chiron because these are the two planets that are going to be most pivotal for Princess Catherine in 2024. She will be having Saturn trining her Moon and forming a sextile with her Sun. And she'll also have transiting Chiron moving through Aries, squaring both her Sun and her Moon. In fact, this transit has already started and coincides with her treatment. Her husband, Prince William, is in the middle of some very stressful transits, mainly from Neptune. But Princess Catherine is not being too badly impacted this year. Now, transiting Saturn is moving through the sign of Pisces, so this coincides with her 8th house. The 8th house is a house of death. It is a house of beginnings and endings, but it's also a house of trauma, of transformation, of metamorphosis. Now, even good aspects from transiting Saturn are hard work, but they are also productive. We feel that something has been achieved by the time that the transit is over. And I think this marks a process of Princess Catherine moving slowly and painfully through recuperation. And with transiting Chiron, squaring her Sun and Moon, and also opposing her natal Saturn, it is activating the T-square in her natal chart, that Sun, Moon, Saturn T-square. It is again bringing to the surface issues around early conditioning, and it may be bringing to the surface previously subconscious fears around our physical appearance, whether there are conditions placed around the love that we receive from others, however unspoken. Chiron's wounds are where we are most vulnerable, and we may disguise this in the ordinary running of our lives, but that deep vulnerability can be reignited from time to time, as will be the case for Princess Catherine in 2024. So we can see that some of those prominent natal positions are being reactivated by transiting planets, potentially exposing deep insecurities underneath the princess's glamorous and self-possessed exterior. I personally believe that the princess will fare okay in 2024. It will be difficult, but she will come through it. There will be an ongoing vulnerability, and I will quickly show you the positions of her progressed Mars over the next few years. Now, as you can see, progressed Mars turned stationary retrograde in January of this year. Now, this stationary position is said to be very potent, almost as though the planet has the most strength at this time, and we must bear in mind that Mars is classed as a malefic planet. But as it slowly edges backwards, its power becomes less and less. It still remains locked within that T-square to her Sun and Moon for some time. So there will be a vulnerability going forward at this particular point, 19 degrees of Libra. And so the princess's health may continue to be triggered by transiting planets over the years, and also other progressed planets as they change position. At this point in her life, I feel that she will rally, but I think it's best to look at this on a year-to-year basis. Now, we haven't looked at Princess Catherine's solar return for this year yet, and so this is what we'll move to next. Now, the point of this is to satisfy people's concerns regarding Princess Catherine's health. And if we look at the standalone chart on the left, we can see Neptune there in the 6th house of solar return health, making a square aspect with Mercury and the Moon. I think that pretty much sums up the very confused and torturous decision that the princess has had to make. The 8th house is tenanted by Jupiter and Uranus, and they aren't too badly aspected. In fact, Jupiter has a very positive trine to that Mars, and there is a steadying sextile with Saturn. We can see in this chart that the Sun is squaring Chiron, and that both the Sun and Chiron are conjunct an angle. This reiterates our discussion of Princess Catherine's transits this year. But let's look at the chart on the right, which shows us Catherine's natal chart on the inside, with all the solar return planets placed around the outside in green. This is the most important chart because we must always consider the natal planets. And we can quickly establish, look, the solar return ascendant actually falls on Princess Catherine's natal Mars. So one of Mars' symbolisms, surgery, is right there on the most sensitive point of the solar return. And by uncanny repetition, we can see that the solar return Moon and Mercury are on Princess Catherine's Neptune. So again, they are confirming the confusion and uncertainty that the poor princess has been going through. The solar midheaven is illuminating her 12th house, a house of seclusion and isolation. And do we have any signs of hope? Yes, we do. The solar return Jupiter is conjunct the princess's natal midheaven at 5 degrees of Taurus. And it's a close conjunction of this benefic planet and confirms my own personal take on the matter, which is that the princess will make it through this year. We will also have a very brief look at Prince William's solar return to see if we can pick up any themes here of what that 12-month period will be like between the 21st of June 2024 and June 2025. If we look first at the chart on our left, this is his standalone solar return. And I must confess that I was immediately apprehensive when I saw that Saturn in the first house squaring his moon, which can be symbolic of the wife, of weight, of emotional sadness. But if we try to place this into context by looking at the chart on our right, again we have the prince's natal chart in the centre, and the solar return planets are placed around the outside of this chart in green. And let's see what key themes we can glean from this. Now, the house in Prince William's chart that is being brought to prominence is Pisces, because this is where the solar return ascendant is placed. And Pisces rules Prince William's 4th house. This is the house home and roots, but it also has parental signification and would more likely be the house of father. And so this whole sign 4th house is important during this 1 year period. We already know that Prince William's chart is coming under heavy blows from transiting Neptune, which we can see down at the bottom here, squaring his ascendant and his sun. The midheaven of the solar return falls very close to Prince William's natal ascendant and to his Neptune. And I feel that Neptune is showing the immense uncertainty that Prince William is facing in his public role. As his father, the king, has had to retreat from many duties and the future is looking uncertain, does Prince William know which direction he wants to head in? That solar return moon in Sagittarius does not make many aspects to his natal chart, save from a sextile to his natal Saturn. Gemini is on the cusp of his 7th house, so we know that the position of Mercury is important in his formal relationships. And we could also consider Venus for his relationship with Princess Catherine, although of course it can be symbolic of other relationships too. Venus and Mercury are close by his Sun and fall in his natal 7th house. These planets may well be representative of his marriage, of his wife, and we can see from that square by Neptune the immense uncertainty that has been generated. However, they do trine his own natal Jupiter and midheaven. And so I think these charts are testimony to a great deal of uncertainty and sadness, but not with the intensity that I would associate with the loss of a wife. I hope this video has brought you hope for our beautiful princess. I did also have a look at the charts of her 3 young children, and I cannot see the sort of trauma there by transit or progression that we would anticipate if they were to be losing their mother. We're aware that there will still be a vulnerability in Princess Catherine's chart for some time because of that T-square with progressed Mars activating her Sun-Moon opposition. This point will sometimes be brought alive again by transits and progressions from other planets. So we really need to take things a year at a time and see how transiting planets affect this particular point. Now, some of you have asked if I do personal readings, and I'm sorry, but I don't offer personal readings at this point in time. So if anybody approaches you using my introverted astrologer tag and offers you a reading, it isn't me. If I am ever in the position to offer personal readings, I will announce it on this channel. In the meantime, I'm very happy to continue making videos for the collective. And I notice a few of you are very interested in the Duke and Duchess, Harry and Meghan. And so my next video will be on this couple. And in the meantime, have a wonderful Easter and take the very best care of yourself.